Most 70-year-olds can't do what this 89-year-old just demonstrated in front of shocked neuroscientists. While everyone assumes brain decline is inevitable, three simple abilities reveal something disturbing about how we've been thinking about aging completely backwards. Have you ever walked into a room full of people at a family gathering and somehow managed to greet everyone by name, even distant cousins you haven't seen in years? Well, congratulations. Your brain just passed one of its most important tests. Remembering names and faces isn't just about being polite at parties. It's actually a complex brain workout that reveals whether your mental machinery is running smoothly. When you look at someone's face and instantly pull up their name, multiple parts of your brain are working together like a well-rehearsed orchestra. The visual cortex processes facial features. The temporal lobe stores memories. The frontal cortex connects everything together. Makes sense, right? But here's where it gets interesting. This seemingly simple skill is often the first thing to slip when our brains start showing their age. And the weird part is, most people don't even notice it happening at first. Think about those moments when you're talking to someone whose face you definitely recognize, but their name hovers just out of reach. It's like having a word on the tip of your tongue, except more embarrassing. Your brain knows the information is stored somewhere in there, but the retrieval system is having a bad day. Then there are the cognitive superagers. These remarkable people sail through their 80s and 90s still calling everyone by name at the grocery store, remembering not just faces but entire conversations from months ago. Scientists study these mental athletes because they want to understand what keeps some brains sharp while others fade. The fascinating truth: forgetting names occasionally doesn't mean your brain is broken. Even young people blank on names sometimes, especially when they're stressed or tired. Normal aging affects everyone differently, and name recall can fluctuate based on dozens of factors. Sleep quality, stress levels, how much attention you paid during introductions, whether you actually cared about remembering the person's name in the first place. Let's not forget that some people have always been terrible with names, regardless of age. That friend who calls everyone buddy or sweetie might not have a memory problem at all. They might just have never developed strong face-name connection pathways to begin with. But why does this particular skill matter so much for brain health? Because linking faces with names requires your brain to create and maintain complex associative networks. When these networks stay strong, it suggests that communication between different brain regions is still flowing smoothly. When they weaken significantly, it can signal that broader memory systems are struggling. The difference between normal forgetfulness and something more serious often comes down to patterns. Occasionally blanking on your neighbor's name? Probably fine. Consistently failing to recognize people you see regularly? That might deserve a conversation with your doctor. What's particularly encouraging is how much control we have over this skill. Regular social interaction, paying close attention during introductions, and using memory tricks can all help maintain those crucial brain pathways. Some superagers credit their sharp name recall to decades of genuinely caring about the people they meet. Speaking of maintaining mental sharpness, there's another powerful way your brain reveals its health. Remember when your grandmother complained that learning was just for young folks? Well, turns out she was dead wrong. Your brain at 70 can still grow new connections faster than weeds in springtime. Actually picking up something completely new after your seventh decade might be one of the strongest signs your mind is aging like fine wine instead of milk left in the sun. Here's what blows most people away. Scientists used to think brain growth stopped around age 25. Done, finished. No more neural highways being built. But research from the past 2 decades proves that's complete nonsense. Your brain keeps building fresh pathways well into your 80s and beyond, especially when you challenge it with unfamiliar territory. Learning a new hobby after 70 literally rewires your neural circuits. Each time you struggle with guitar chords or fumble through Spanish vocabulary, your brain cells are forming brand new connections. These aren't just tiny improvements either. We're talking about major construction projects happening inside your skull. The science calls this neuroplasticity, which is just a fancy way of saying your brain stays flexible. Think of it like mental yoga. The more you stretch those cognitive muscles with fresh challenges, the more limber they become. And here's the kicker. This flexibility doesn't have an expiration date. What should you tackle? Technology offers endless possibilities. Learning to navigate smartphones, tablets, or video calling can create thousands of new neural pathways. languages work wonders too. Even basic conversational skills in French or Italian force your brain to build entirely new processing centers, musical instruments, absolutely perfect. Your fingers, ears, and memory centers all team up in ways they've never experienced before. But here's where it gets really interesting. Superagers, those rare folks who stay mentally sharp into their 90s, share one common trait. They never stop learning. Not because someone forces them to, but because they genuinely enjoy the process. They get excited about mastering something new, even when it feels frustrating at first. The weird part is how this love of learning protects other brain functions too. When you're busy figuring out how to use a tablet or memorizing piano scales, you're accidentally strengthening the same neural networks that handle memory, problem solving, and attention. It's like getting a full brain workout while having fun. Normal aging does slow down how quickly you absorb new information. That's expected. Your processing speed might not match a 20-year-old's anymore. So what? The important thing is whether you still feel curious about the world around you. Do new experiences excite you or overwhelm you? Can you stick with something challenging long enough to see progress? If you're still signing up for classes, downloading apps to learn new skills, or picking up hobbies you've always wanted to try, your brain is sending clear signals. It's saying, I'm still growing, still building, still ready for whatever comes next. Well, speaking of what comes next, all this learning means nothing if you can't express your thoughts clearly when talking with others. You're at a dinner party and everyone's talking at once. Carol's complaining about her neighbor's dog, Jim's debating politics, and someone's telling a joke you can barely hear over the clatter of dishes. Can you follow along? Better yet, can you jump in with your own story without losing the thread? If you answered yes, your brain is firing on all cylinders. Keeping up in group conversations is like mental gymnastics. Your brain has to process multiple voices, filter out background noise, store what people said, and prepare your response all at the same time. It's exhausting just thinking about it. Well, here's what's actually happening upstairs. Your brain uses something called executive function to manage this chaos. Think of it as your mental traffic controller deciding which conversations deserve attention and which can wait. When this system works smoothly, you can switch between topics without missing a beat. When it doesn't, you might find yourself nodding along to a story about someone's grandkids when everyone else moved on to discussing the weather 5 minutes ago. But why does finding the right words sometimes feel like fishing in muddy water? Your brain stores words in a vast network, connected by meaning, sound, and memory. As we age, the pathways between these word storage areas can slow down slightly. It's perfectly normal, like having a slightly older computer that takes an extra second to load. The information is still there, just needs a moment to surface. Then there's the tip of the tongue phenomenon. You know that feeling when you're trying to remember the name of that actor from the movie about the thing? Your brain knows it knows the answer, but the connection isn't quite clicking. Scientists have studied this, and guess what? It happens to everyone regardless of age. Even teenagers get tongue-tied sometimes. The real magic happens when you can still tell a compelling story. Sharing anecdotes requires your brain to organize events in sequence, choose relevant details, and deliver them with timing that keeps people engaged. It's like being a director, editor, and performer all rolled into one. If you can still make people laugh with your stories or hold their attention during a good debate, your verbal memory is in excellent shape. And the weird part is, some superagers actually get better at conversation skills over time. They've learned to listen more carefully, ask better questions, and use their vast life experience to add depth to discussions. While younger folks might have faster processing speed, older adults often bring wisdom and perspective that makes conversations richer. Here's a quick test. Next time you're chatting with friends, notice how easily you can recall specific details from earlier in the conversation or reference something someone mentioned 20 minutes ago. Can you build on their ideas? Do you find yourself genuinely engaged rather than just waiting for your turn to speak? Your ability to dance through conversations reveals more about your cognitive health than you might expect, because there's something even more telling about how your brain handles complex challenges, and it involves those daily puzzles that might be sitting on your coffee table right now. That daily crossword puzzle you tackle over morning coffee, it's doing more for your brain than you realize. When you're hunting for a 7-letter word meaning confused or working through a tricky Sudoku, your frontal lobe lights up like a Christmas tree. These aren't just time killers, they're brain builders. Here's what most people miss. Puzzle solving isn't about being smart. It's about executive function, which sounds fancy but really means your brain's ability to plan, focus, and switch between different ideas. Think of it as your mental CEO making decisions all day long. The research gets interesting when you look at people who stay sharp into their 90s. They don't necessarily have higher IQs than everyone else, but they keep challenging themselves with problems that make their brains work. Whether it's figuring out why the Wi-Fi stopped working or decoding their grandkid's latest text message, they stay curious. Well, here's the thing about daily puzzles. They're sneaky brain trainers. That moment when you're stuck on 15 across and suddenly the answer pops into your head, your brain just made dozens of connections, pulled from memory banks and sorted through possibilities. Not bad for a Tuesday morning activity, but crosswords aren't the only game in town. Some of the sharpest older adults I've met are the ones wrestling with new technology. They're the grandparents asking their kids to show them TikTok, then actually figuring out how to post their own videos. Learning to use a smartphone at 75 exercises the same problem-solving muscles as any puzzle book. The use it or lose it principle hits hard here. Your brain loves routine, but it thrives on challenge. When you stop presenting it with problems to solve, those neural pathways start getting dusty. Makes sense, right? Muscles weaken without exercise, and your brain works the same way. Then there's the everyday problem solving that we barely notice, figuring out the best route to avoid traffic, remembering which medications go with breakfast versus dinner, planning a week's worth of meals around what's already in the fridge. These mundane tasks are actually sophisticated mental gymnastics, and the weird part is, many people think they're not good at puzzles, so they avoid them entirely. But your brain doesn't care if you finish the Sunday crossword in record time. It cares that you're trying, making connections, and pushing against mental boundaries. Super-agers often share one trait: they don't shy away from mental challenges. They'll spend 20 minutes figuring out a new app instead of asking someone else to do it. They'll attempt the difficult Sudoku, even if yesterday's easy one took forever. They understand that temporary confusion leads to lasting sharpness. What's fascinating is how this connects to something even more fundamental: the way your brain manages your entire day. Because once your problem-solving skills start clicking, organizing your daily life becomes the next frontier where your mental fitness really shows. Ever notice how some people can juggle 10 different tasks without breaking a sweat, while others forget their grocery list before they even leave the house? That's your brain's planning center at work, and honestly, it's one of the best ways to measure how sharp your mind really is. Managing your daily schedule isn't just about being organized, it's actually a complex mental workout that engages multiple brain regions at once. When you remember that doctor's appointment next Tuesday, while simultaneously planning dinner and mentally noting you need to call your sister back, your working memory is firing on all cylinders. Makes sense, right? The frontal lobe handles this mental juggling act like a skilled conductor leading an orchestra. Each appointment, each medication time, each bill due date gets stored, prioritized, and retrieved exactly when you need it. Super-agers excel at this because their frontal lobes stay remarkably preserved even into their 90s. Let's not forget how impressive it is when you can stick to that shopping list you wrote. Walking through the grocery store while remembering what you need, where to find it, and what you already have at home requires serious mental coordination. Your brain has to hold multiple pieces of information while filtering out distractions like crying babies and sale announcements. But here's where it gets interesting. Managing medications becomes a real test of cognitive fitness. Morning pills with breakfast, afternoon doses after lunch, evening supplements before bed. Miss too many, and the consequences pile up fast. Yet many older adults handle complex medication schedules flawlessly for decades. That's not luck. That's a healthy brain doing what it does best. The scary truth? When cognitive decline really kicks in, planning abilities often crumble first. Simple tasks like paying bills or keeping track of appointments become overwhelming mountains instead of manageable molehills. That's why maintaining these skills matters so much. Well, what about those people who never needed calendars or reminder notes? They're the ones who show up exactly on time, remember every birthday, and somehow keep their entire social calendar organized in their heads. Their working memory operates like a well-oiled machine, constantly updating and reorganizing information without conscious effort. Then there's the flip side. Forgetting an occasional appointment doesn't mean your brain is failing. Life gets hectic, distractions happen, and sometimes even the sharpest minds slip up. The key difference lies in patterns. Missing one dentist appointment? No big deal. Consistently forgetting important commitments or losing track of daily routines? That's worth paying attention to. And the weird part is how this planning ability connects to independence. Many superagers live alone well into their 80s and 90s precisely because they can still manage their schedules, medications, and responsibilities. Their brains haven't lost that crucial executive function that keeps life running smoothly. Managing your daily plans exercises the same mental muscles that help you adapt when things go wrong. Because let's face it, life rarely goes according to plan, and how your brain handles those curveballs reveals even more about its true condition. Ever watch a toddler try to walk? They wobble, fall, get back up, and somehow their brain figures it all out. Well, your brain never stopped doing that job. Right now, as you're sitting there reading this, your brain is orchestrating thousands of tiny movements without you even thinking about it. Your brain doesn't just handle thoughts and memories, it's also your body's master choreographer. Every time you reach for your coffee cup, walk downstairs, or even scratch your nose, your brain coordinates muscles, balance, and timing with split-second precision. Makes sense, right? But here's what most people don't realize. How smoothly you move is actually a fantastic indicator of how well your brain is aging. Think about the last time you went dancing, or maybe you were just walking through your garden, bending down to pull weeds. These activities might seem purely physical, but they're actually intense brain workouts. Your brain has to process where your body is in space, predict how much force to use, and adjust balance in real time. That's some serious multitasking. Scientists have discovered something fascinating about superagers and movement. The ones who stay mentally sharp also tend to move with surprising grace well into their 80s and 90s. Coincidence? Not likely. The same brain regions that help you remember where you put your keys also help you navigate stairs without holding the railing. Let's not forget about the warning signs, though. When coordination starts declining rapidly, not the gradual slowing that comes with normal aging, it can signal deeper cognitive changes brewing. But gradual changes, those are just part of the natural aging process. Your reflexes might not be what they were at 25, and that's perfectly normal. Here's where it gets interesting. People who keep playing piano, tennis, or even video games are giving their brains a double workout. These activities demand split-second decisions while coordinating complex movements. Your brain loves this challenge. It's like cross-training for your neurons. And the weird part is, staying physically active doesn't just protect your muscles and bones, it actually shields your thinking abilities too. When you garden, dance, or play catch with your grandkids, you're building cognitive reserves. Those neural pathways that control movement also support memory, attention, and problem solving. Balance is another telltale sign. Can you stand on one foot while brushing your teeth? Not saying you should make this a daily test, but people with healthy brain aging tend to maintain better balance longer. Your brain constantly receives signals from your inner ear, eyes, and muscles to keep you upright. When this system works smoothly, it's a good indicator that your brain's communication networks are functioning well. Even simple tasks like buttoning a shirt or opening a jar require your brain to coordinate fine motor skills with visual processing and muscle memory. If these everyday movements still feel natural and automatic, your brain is doing its job beautifully. But movement is just one piece of the puzzle. Your brain's ability to form and recall recent memories tells an even more revealing story about cognitive aging. Your brain processes about 34 gigabytes of information every day. That's roughly equivalent to streaming 8 hours of Netflix content. Most of it gets filtered out, but what your brain decides to keep tells an interesting story about your cognitive health. Remember what you had for breakfast this morning? If you can recall not just the food, but maybe where you sat or what you were thinking about, that's your short-term memory flexing its muscles. This type of recall involves multiple brain regions working together like a well-rehearsed orchestra. But here's where things get tricky. Forgetting whether you added sugar to your coffee isn't the same as forgetting you had breakfast entirely. The difference matters more than most people realize. Your brain naturally lets go of trivial details. It's actually a sign of efficiency, not decline. Think about it. If you remembered every single mundane moment, you'd be drowning in useless information. Recent memory works differently than the stories from decades ago. Those childhood memories have been rehearsed, strengthened, and sometimes even embellished over time. Fresh memories are still fragile, like wet cement that hasn't fully hardened. They need repetition and attention to stick around. Superagers have mastered something fascinating about this process. They don't necessarily remember everything better. They remember the right things better. Their brains have maintained the ability to decide what's worth keeping and what can be discarded. That selectivity is actually a sophisticated cognitive skill. Well, what about those moments when you walk into a room and forget why you came there? That's called the doorway effect, and it happens because your brain treats physical transitions as mental chapter breaks. Completely normal. The concerning stuff is different, like forgetting significant events from yesterday or losing track of important conversations. Making new memories involves a brain structure called the hippocampus, which acts like a temporary storage facility. Information gets processed there before being filed away in long-term storage. As we age, this transfer process can slow down, but it shouldn't stop working entirely. Regular mental exercise keeps this system running smoothly. Then there's the power of routine. Ever notice how you remember things better when they follow a pattern? Your brain loves predictability. Routines create mental scaffolding that helps new information stick. That's why superagers often develop personal systems for remembering, not because their brains are failing, but because they're smart enough to work with their brain's natural preferences. The weird part is that stress can completely scramble this whole system. Cortisol, your stress hormone, interferes with memory formation. That's why you might remember every detail of a relaxing vacation, but struggle to recall what happened during a hectic week at work. Recent memory also connects to attention. If you're not paying attention when something happens, your brain never properly encodes it in the first place. Multitasking is memory's worst enemy. Quality focus beats scattered attention every time. Your ability to form and recall recent memories reveals how well your cognitive machinery is functioning right now. But what happens when life throws you a curveball and demands you adapt to something completely new? Life loves throwing curveballs, doesn't it? Your familiar TV suddenly gets replaced with a smart model that has 17 buttons and 3 remotes. The grocery store rearranges every aisle overnight. Your doctor's office switches to a new appointment system that requires navigating an app designed by someone who apparently hates elderly people. How you handle these disruptions reveals something crucial about your brain's flexibility. Superagers don't just survive these changes, they adapt with surprising grace. Their brains stay nimble enough to learn new patterns, adjust old habits, and roll with whatever life serves up next. Mental flexibility works like a muscle that either stays strong or weakens from disuse. When your usual coffee shop closes and you easily find a new favorite spot, that's your adaptable brain in action. When construction forces you to take a different route and you navigate it without panic, you're demonstrating cognitive flexibility that many people lose as they age. But here's where it gets interesting. The ability to adapt isn't just about handling inconveniences, it's about rewiring your brain on demand. Every time you learn a new routine, whether it's using a different checkout system at the store or figuring out your grandchild's gaming console, you're literally creating new neural pathways. Research shows that people who stay mentally flexible throughout their 70s and 80s have brains that look remarkably similar to much younger people. They don't get stuck in rigid thinking patterns or become overwhelmed when familiar routines change. Instead, they approach new challenges with curiosity rather than frustration. Well, what does this look like in real life? Maybe you switched from paper books to e-readers and actually enjoyed discovering new features. Perhaps you learned to video call during the pandemic and now use it regularly to chat with distant family. Could be you figured out food delivery apps or online banking without needing your tech-savvy relative to hold your hand through every step. The weird part is that many people assume they're too old to adapt, creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. They avoid new experiences, stick rigidly to familiar routines, and gradually lose the mental flexibility that could keep their brains young. Meanwhile, superagers embrace change as a natural part of life and a chance to keep their minds sharp. Your brain's adaptability also shows up in smaller moments. When plans suddenly change, do you adjust smoothly or does it throw off your entire day? Can you find alternative solutions when your usual approach doesn't work? These everyday examples of mental flexibility matter more than you might think. Then there's the social aspect of adaptation. Keeping up with changing communication styles, new slang, or evolving technology helps you stay connected with younger generations. This social flexibility often correlates with better overall cognitive health and a more positive outlook on aging. Makes sense, right? A brain that stays flexible stays young. But flexibility isn't the only factor that separates superagers from everyone else. There's one more element that ties all these cognitive abilities together, something that might surprise you about how superagers actually think about thinking itself.